Good day, our wonderful viewers. How is the day going? Is your program and we back at it, Bulwark against addiction. And I have my respectable and highly dignified barrister, Barrister Jude. How are you doing?
Yeah,
welcome again.
Good to be here.
Oh, exactly.
Good to be. How is the family and
very lovely.
Are you seeing the traffic?
Yeah, it's really intense. Yeah. Now we're back to it again, drug addiction, and this time around we want to consider the legal production, distribution, warehousing, and sales of drugs. Is it really possible for such a thing to exist in some cases?
You seem to be asking multiple questions in just one.
Can break it down one by one.
Okay, for a start, if you're talking about the legal production, that's to say if drugs can be legal, produced. Yeah, for now, I know by law, they recognize legal drugs production. That is to say, drugs that are legally produced and accepted and recognized by law. In Nigeria for now, it's give it to cigarettes and alcohol, but with some moderations. And in area of cigarettes, when you're talking about cigarette now, of course there are laws, like in Lagos State, for example, now, I know there are laws that prohibits public smoking, but most people are not aware of that. In as much as the Nigerian law recognizes it's not a crime to smoke
cigarettes.
Yes. So that is also say it gives room for production. I know there are a couple of companies here that produce cigarettes, so it's not an offense, but it comes with some moderations. You can't smoke in public. So also there's an act of the National Assembly, is it year 2019? There's a regulatory body that also prohibits public smoking. You can only smoke in secluded areas, but not in public institutions or public places. But most people are now aware of that. Cigarettes, legally recognized. Of course, the popular alcohol, you know, people drink. That also categorized under drugs. So people drink and then it's recognized by law. I think those two for now. Then marijuana, cocaine, one of those ones are still prohibited for now. And then there was a time, was it sometime last year, what was his name? The governor of Ondo State was trying to canvass if they can make marijuana legal and let it be produced in Nigeria. And he tried to highlight the benefits that could come out from in terms of financial benefits, source of income for the country. But that's something to ponder upon by the government for the nearest future, you know. And I think that for now, those are the legal recognized drugs that the law recognizes: cigarettes, alcohol, but still prohibited. We all know marijuana, cocaine, and all those other hard drugs are still prohibited for now.
But what if someone applies for license to farm, package, bag,
obviously,
and sell marijuana,
yes,
like that?
The laws, yes, there are companies who produce, of course, by approval. Of course, but we can't rule out the multiple health benefits it serves. Yeah, there are procedures to it. There are companies who apply, and the law recognizes them. But publicly, generally speaking, they are prohibited drugs by law in the country. Of course, we can't rule out the fact that there are companies who produce these things, but they follow the basic laws. So also, there are also some illegal production of these things, marijuana, cannabis, and all. There are some illegal productions. Time to time, you see Nigerian Drug Law Enforcement Agency goes in, you hear reports, they found some sites where they are producing hard drugs and all. Fine, it exists. Yeah, you can apply, and of course, it has to be for mostly medicinal purposes. There are companies producing them. And again, we can also rule out the fact that Nigeria, from my statistics, it shows that Nigeria seems to be the 8th largest, most consumed country that consumes hard drugs like cannabis. So that also gives room to the fact that there are a lot of illegal production of such drugs going on in Nigeria. Places like Osun, Edo, Ogun State are well pronounced for illegal production of drugs of this nature, you know.
From my understanding, I believe that legal production is minimum, extreme minimum, because it's not for public consumption per se. It's for pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah.
If pharmaceutical industry consumes legally produced drugs,
Yeah.
that's actually why it's quite minimum. And it is possible for the country to grant license to produce minimum drugs. I mean, to produce hard drugs minimally. I know it's possible. And besides, the protocol, do you have any idea if it's very, very difficult to assess the protocol to produce hard drugs minimally for the pharmaceutical industry?
As regards that, I might not be able to answer, but I might just share a little like protocols in terms of you saying, okay, I want to collect approval license to produce cannabis or marijuana or whatever. The body in charge you go to apply and they grant you. I might not really, but I want to believe basically there are institutions you tender applications for, and for that. But basically, if it comes to the agencies in charge for regulation, supervision, and to some extent, yes, enforcement, there are about 4 agencies when it has to do with drug-related matters. But we'll discuss that if time permits that.
Okay, well, can we probably we could share more light to the 4 agencies?
Yeah. The well-known, most pronounced one among them is the Nigerian Drug Law Enforcement Agency, which we all know was established and created by an act of by Decree 48 of 1989. That was under the military era. That's how they make laws. You know, they make laws by decree. You know, which is now a law, being a civilian government we're running.
Okay.
You know, so that is the well-known. That was actually the first entry into having like a group or a body that handles, regulates, supervises, and checks activities that has to do with drug-related matter. Nigerian Drug Law Enforcement Agency. That was the first well-known and most well-known recognized this thing. And then we also have the popular Nafta. Of course, we all know then, during the time of Dora Cooley of blessed memory, we know how she fought things that had with food. Basically, Nafta has to do with more they deal on food and drugs. Food, drugs, and so it cuts across. They also handle things that have to do with drugs.
Okay.
The NAFDAC, NDLEA, NAFDAC, the custom also is also a body recognized. But if you know, there are times custom checks distance. And
to know how much is in circulation. And
sometimes there are times you see custom comes out and say they've intercepted 20 container, 5 container
truckload
of hard drugs. So it's still in line with that. Then the police force. That's why you have most time you see the police just comes to an environment, they go into raiding. The law recognizes them to checkmate activities of drug. But the first primary agency created for that purpose is Nigerian Drug Law, NDLEA.
All right.
So those are primarily the four institutions.
Yeah, you are right.
4 institutions.
Let's go on a short break. Viewers, we are going on a short break now, and we'll be back stronger and better with Bulwark. Thanks. Welcome back, our highly distinguished guests and our highly distinguished viewers. Bulwark is back, and this time around, we'll talk about NAFDAC. NAFDAC to me.
NAFDAC or Drug Law, NDLEA. Okay.
Yeah, NAFDAC to me. You have NAFDAC.
Okay.
You have NDLEA.
Yeah.
NDLEA seems to be more of a paramilitary kind of, in my own opinion. If I'm right, if I'm wrong, please correct me.
But primarily, when the government thought about having something like a body that will regulate or handle matters that has to do with drug, that was the first institution and agency the government considered to create for that purpose, drug-related fighting.
NAFDAC is
also
more scientific and civil in nature, if you observe. So let's talk about NAFDAC and what NAFDAC can really do to support other sister agencies or allied agencies in combating and controlling illegal production of in combating and preventing illegal drug production. So NAFDAC as a more scientific and more civil organization, what can NAFDAC do to to forestall the production of illegal drugs in the country?
Well, for me, I think I would have stood on the ground, the area of not just what can NAFDAC do. I think NAFDAC has been active and working before now, and of blessed memory, I can't really recall the name of the current NAFDAC DG right now, but we all know the most well-pronounced one then, Dora Akuli. We saw the efforts and so much and all she did, and they've always been working and they've always been active. There are times people bring in contraband and what's it called?
Items in the country.
This popular
frozen
codeine,
codeine,
and those related that the government at one time put some restriction upon. So NAFDAC has always been up and doing. Our brothers in the East can also bear and testify to that. Sometimes they bring in fake drugs and sometimes drugs that are hard that are not good for human consumption. NAFDAC has always been going after them. So I think they've been up and doing. They've been doing their work, It's just that the primary agency for drug-related hard drugs is NDLEA, but NAFDAC also has a role. They've been trying the tramadol, the codeine, the fight against tramadol and codeine. I know NAFDAC to a great extent has been up and doing on that, going against people abusing those things and then even apprehending them, people bringing them in contrary to the government rules, the government law of application for such drugs. So I think NAFDAC has been up and doing.
That's a very good one.
I give them a pass mark.
No, most people, NAFDAC is a composite in nature, and NAFDAC, as a matter of fact, has really apprehended many syndicates trying to bring in frozen turkey after they were banned due to lack of the quality and their cancerous nature. So when it comes to the drug aspect, most people really have not heard much about NAFDAC. That's exactly the chart. Exactly.
Yes.
So it's more of the NDLEA people get to know about. Yes. Meanwhile, these are like allied bodies to NAFDAC. That can work with them pari passu to achieve some goals in the country.
Yes, I think why it's so because the primary purpose why the government created NDLEA is purely for drug offenses, drug-related matters, and people are now aware of the fact that NAFDAC also has some kind of bearing to that, because by virtue of the definition of NAFDAC, National Enforcement Food Drug, you see drug is mentioned inside, food, drug, administration control.
Okay.
So you're not ruling out drug, so they handle matters on food and drugs. So hard drugs also comes in also. So they also play a sister role in supporting
supporting the NDLEA.
NDLEA.
No, I know NAFDAC is more scientific and civil in nature. Everybody knows that. And talking about the custom is doing its best to track, detect, and seize illegal drugs in the country.
Yes.
And the police have this role to play.
By virtue of the police, okay.
And as a matter of fact, they have conducted so many arrests to control these things. But still, the main challenge is that let's talk about the legal consumption now. Those who take these drugs based on prescription. Are there patients who have been treated based on these drugs here in Nigeria?
Come again.
Are there patients who are meant or who have been given the license or the right to consume some of these hard drugs for medical purposes?
Well, when you talk about patients given the license to consume for medical purposes, They're bringing a little, what's it called now? I think the doctors need to come and explain some of this. But little I can share on that light. I don't think there's no hospital or there's no doctor who would tell a patient to come and consume cannabis.
Based on prescription, it's being restricted. It can be administered by the medical experts.
I think more often in the past, the one that is usually based on prescriptions, they were mostly abused when the government had to put some restriction. Then I remember when AFRICUNIA was always shouting, and they seem to be abusing. That is the popular tramadol and codeine.
Okay.
I think these are usually the ones that are based on prescription, doctors' prescriptions.
The tramadol and cocaine and codeine are more of pain relievers. They are sedatives.
But they are also somehow
addictive.
Yes. And when it becomes addictive, it becomes a hard drug.
Exactly.
You know, something that brings you pleasure. Something that brings you, sometimes takes you high.
Yes.
It could also be qualified to.
So
they are all drug.
Now, so in a nutshell, these items too can be legally produced and legally consumed, legally produced for the pharmaceutical industry. In the past,
you could say the tramadol, the codeine was a legally produced and recognized drug by Nigerian law, whereby anyone can walk into anywhere and pick up codeine. Anyone can freely be on the road taking codeine. It's not an offense. And anyone can just walk in and bring in codeine into the country or bring in tramadol. The law recognizes those drugs as legally accepted by law, that it's not an offense. But now there are limitations to it now, because you can't just walk in, come in, take up codeine or tramadol from anywhere or import them. You know, the way we usually have in the past, you walk into maybe a pharmacist, even maybe you're just purely having cough, then you go and buy codeine. You want to do one or two things, you go and take tramadol. But now there are restrictions.
Perfect.
The law doesn't see you as taking it indiscriminately the way we freely take them those days.
Okay.
So I think that's the position for that.
Okay. All right, viewers. Hope you have gained a lot from our guest, Barrister Jude. And really, we've talked about the topic, which is about legal production and consumption of some hard drugs in the country. See you next time, same channel, and still the same topic. I remain your host, Joseph, and Barrister Jude. It's a pleasure to have you on the studio. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Wish you a wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.